Hey, what's up, everyone? So, this is Alex here, and we'll be going on for the five empty squares puzzle number 8 to 10, just to kind of wrap up temporarily on our endgame study with Othello Quest program. So, after this episode, we'll be jumping into the Othello Japan more complex or even expert level endgame puzzles. So, over here, the puzzle number 8, it's White's turn to play, and you have three choices. So where should you start with? So over here, it's more about the end game flow. Um, Definitely over here, if you were to consider either the c square or the x square, you just give up the corner unnecessarily, perhaps. And if you play the c square, black would just simply secure. Over here, you have the opportunity to actually use your b8 disc to capture the corner, even though if you grab this move, black follows with capturing the seventh row, but you can realize that you might be able to capture parity to the top and consequentially attack these two columns G and H. So that would be like kind of like a natural flow of the game whereby you capture the bottom edge, you secure the anchor, and the remaining playing field is to the top right. So you secure this edge, you force the response, and then finally you go down to H1 and form a two square region whereby, regardless of where black plays, you are able to capture the G column. So let's roughly make a count to see whether that would be sufficient. 27 white discs right now, we add 6 to the count, we minus 6 over here. So that's a very quick visualization whereby you can just immediately nullify both moves. So kind of first step you need to consider is that you need to convince yourself that definitely if you play H8, black would have to respond with H7. So if he doesn't and he plays somewhere else, you grab H7 and he has to play the top again, and you grab the last move sweeping discs in three different directions. So definitely black has to respond over here. Just based on parity alone, you would know that black would have to respond. So 27 white discs, again, you take plus 6, including the disc that you just placed on the board, minus 6 when black plays this. So they kind of cancel each other out, so that is easy to count. You're still on 27 discs. And then finally, you grab this row down on the H column, so you get plus 7. So that gives you 34. And regardless of where black plays, if black plays this, minus 3, and then you finally plus 6 down here, plus 7 actually. So minus 3 over here is also plus 7 down for you. So either way, you're probably going to have a comfortable win with that force sequence. So let's go ahead with H8 after considering all of that. And black has to respond. So finally, instead of grabbing the X square and allowing black to capture the corner and secure his edge, you capture the edge on the right, and regardless of where he plays, you just grab the other move. Easy win with parity. So that's the eighth puzzle for 5 empty squares. So let's move on to puzzle number 9. So over here, it is again White's turn to play. Black has just played H2 over here, probably clearing this entire row over here on the second row. So what you want to consider is, three options. So this is a tough one for sure. You definitely need to count through the sequence just to ensure that you didn't miss anything. You have 29 white discs here. So my advice to you over here is, instead of playing sequences whereby there might be 2 or more options for your opponent, first count off the force sequence. Always do that first to save time, especially when you're short of time. Count the force sequence first. So the force sequence meaning, if you play to, let's say if you were to play B1 here, black can either play either of these two moves, and of course if you were to play the corner, black again can play either of these two moves. So to reduce the complexity and to guarantee a win, especially in a situation where you're short of time, consider A2 first. So what happens is 29 plus 1, 2, that gives you 31, minus 3 if black plays this move first. So 31 minus 3, that's 28, plus 3, 31. 31, and if white, black, white, and black takes this, -4, you get 27 discs remaining, and you add 3 back, you basically lose the game. So once you have established that there is a force sequence that may potentially cause you to lose, you probably want to eliminate this choice almost immediately. So again, having gone through that sequence, you can immediately focus your efforts on counting these two. So let's consider these two then. So right now, white goes to the corner, takes 1, 2, 3. That's 32 discs in total for white. And if black were to secure this row and protect this row excess, white black is the natural response. So that would leave you with 31 plus 2, 33. 33, if black were to go white, black, white, and black goes here, you lose 6 discs and you end up with 33 minus 6, that's 27. You add 4 back, you lose the game with 31 to 33. So definitely once you've counted a 4 sequence there, you probably don't want to go there, and definitely the natural sequence would be to go for the other option here, given that this is a puzzle, but you probably want to convince yourself as well. So let's count it, 29 plus 1, 30, 36, right? So you force the sequence whereby black has to respond to either of those moves. If black didn't play the c-square but played the corner, you'll be able to secure the edge. So definitely he wanted some discs in order to make the last move down to be 8 over here, just to get the last sweep of this down the vertical column and also the diagonal. So the only response here, you don't have to think, let's grab the corner, and naturally you just grab the last move. By virtue of parity, you win the game, 34 to 30. So yeah, that's the 9th puzzle, and let's move on to the last puzzle for today. So over here, it is white's turn to play. This is an interesting shape because the bottom left is even square region whereby black has kind of protected it. So regardless of where you play over here, you would end up kind of surrendering the other move to your opponent. So you want to consider whether to play it now or to play it later, depending on how you want to interact with those discs. So over here again, as white, if you want to count the end game, count the 4 sequence and see whether it makes sense. Over here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. So a very complex puzzle indeed as compared to the previous two. So let's say right now you have 23 white discs on the board. If you were to just go for the 4th sequence, which means going just from your strength intuitively, which is the corner, you get 23 plus 3 plus 6, so that's 29. And definitely black has to respond by covering the corner, because if he doesn't, I mean, that's essentially his only choice anyway. So 29 minus 4, that gives you 25. So white black, 25, even if you were to play this and capture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 25 plus 7, that gives you 32. 32, if you were to play this plus 3 minus 3, that gives you 35 minus 3. That's probably a draw game for you over there. And if you were to play over here plus 3, plus 6 essentially, and minus 7, that would actually give you a loss. So that probably isn't the solution right now. The straightforward edge creep is probably not the solution to play. So instead, what you probably want to consider is maybe something like, okay, let's say if you were to consider the second option, it would mean playing to h3. And h3 most likely would be probably worse off than h2. So let's do the count. 23, 4, 5, 6, 31, plus 1, 32, minus 6 over here. So essentially you end up with 26 plus 5, 31. So you actually end up with fewer discs over here, and 31 plus 3, 34 minus 3, that would give you 31. So this actually gives you fewer discs than the top option potentially. So let's take a look at another option. One other option is to play important semi swindle. So you know that the fact that there's no way that you can kind of get parity because of this lower left region being 2 squares and being protected by black, surrounded by black. So you might want to play along this idea about this diagonal. So it's about identifying a key diagonal over here. So let's consider G8. So what happens after G8? G8, black is essentially left with two options, H2 or H3. He wouldn't play H2 because it essentially gives you the edge and the corner. I mean, this corner area is solidifying that corner. So definitely he wants to play to his strength. So after G7, naturally you would expect H3 in response. And black, followed by white, you realize that white controls this diagonal after the exchange, white, black, white. So that is important to note. And with that exchange, you might potentially be able to get sufficient number of disks out of the control of this solid diagonal. And you kind of nullify the effect of the parity region over here. So let's count out the sequence and see whether that makes sense. 23 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that gives you 31. 31 minus, after black plays this, minus 5, that gives you 26. And if you plus 4, that gives you 30. And 30, if you were to play over here, that gives you 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 37. 37 minus 5 discs, that gives you 32. That probably isn't a win either way. Let's see. 23 plus 8, 31 minus 5, that's 26 plus 30. So apparently 30, if you were to add on over here. Okay, so it's kind of like a combination of the two logic that we spoke of before. Let's see whether that works out. White, black, white. 30 plus 3 minus 3, that would still lose you the game. So probably that's not the best solution at the moment. So over here, what you probably want to consider is also another move to the bottom. Let's see whether this works. 23 minus 3 plus 2. So 23 plus 3, that's 26, minus 3, that's still 23. And if you were to plus 2 over here, 25 minus 3, 22, your final sweep down also wouldn't be sufficient. So this puzzle is an interesting one. It's let's check whether I actually counted something wrongly. Let me just do a quick check. Intuitively, it does seem like G8 would actually make more sense. Let's go with G8. So over here, we play this move 30. And finally, 30 plus 7 minus 5, that would actually be a draw. If we plus 3 minus... so essentially that is actually a draw. So he's saying that I lost, probably because I didn't find the winning sequence. So let me try this again, down. Okay, so with this, we actually have enough disks. So essentially the more important point over here is actually about sweeping downwards here. So one thing that I missed was in my earlier count, I consider only B8 instead of C8. And I forgot that even this sequence also allows you to control this diagonal. So the key here is still about controlling this diagonal, but of course, definitely you want to consolidate the edge and go down for the sweep. So I think something that I missed was that I assumed that this was still black even in that sequence. So that's why I thought that this was the best move. So yeah, in fact, it's important to actually notice one or two key disks in the end game in order to determine the correct sequence. So finally, when you play this, there is no threat for any sweep of disks along the diagonal. So with that, we can win with a score of 34 to 30. So with that, we've completed 10 endgame puzzles with Othello Quest. Definitely, Othello Quest has a huge library of endgame puzzles that you can try, varying from 1 to 8 empty squares. So definitely, if you have the time, go through those puzzles. It would actually help in your endgame sequences when you play the game. And hopefully you enjoyed this semi-series, and we are going to jump into more complex puzzles going forward for the next episode with Othello Japan. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you at the next episode. Goodbye.